This radio here is a Europhon Eurostar. It's an Italian-made transistor radio from around 1965, or at least that's what I've been able to find on this radio. It doesn't actually say made in Italy anywhere. It's interesting that the markings on this set are all in English. I do like some spelling here. 8 transistor, 1 diodo. At least the rest of the English is okay. This model doesn't seem to have been made for the American market, at least, and I'll get into why I believe that later. First, let's hear it play on AM. Like some other European radios, the power switch is attached to the tone control instead of the volume control.
iHeartRadio app, or listen online at iHeartRadio.com.
Very thirsty.
Situations that...
This radio is more sensitive to interference than most.
To helping you get back on the road and do so as quickly as possible.
A little help here?
Fortunately for Greta, there's Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. It's simple, so she can...
This is not the original antenna, in case you're wondering. The original antenna stopped around here. This is just some sort of cheap replacement. I don't think I'll be able to get anything on shortwave right now, but let's just give it a quick try. Let's try shortwave 1. There's some Billy Graham. At night you can hear him on like 20 different stations. It's kind of ridiculous.
And then the second thing he says about this man in verse 4 is, delight thy...
These switches look kind of flimsy, and perhaps the ends of them are. They are pretty thin. The actual switch mechanism behind them is pretty heavy duty. This radio looks like it saw a fair bit of use over the past couple decades. That knob right there is obviously a replacement. I didn't have a suitable one, so I cut that out of aluminum foil. I'll show you guys the inside of this radio. It's pretty interesting. First I'll show you guys the battery compartment, which I kind of had to redesign a little bit. This radio originally took a pair of those flat 4.5 volt batteries, which you don't really see in the US, and that's what makes me say this radio was not built for the US market. It was perhaps made for the British market, but it's interesting that the dial is marked in, kilohertz and megahertz instead of meters. Not only did the battery compartment take 2 of these 4.5 volt batteries, it was also horribly corroded when I got it. It looked like it was alkaline battery corrosion. So I installed 3 of these 2 AA cell holders to give me the 9 volts that this set originally ran on. I didn't do the prettiest job, but I didn't want to spend a ton of time on this set. This was a one evening project, and it took a full evening. The set was functional when I got it, but barely. The worst problem this set had was the fact that there was a ton of white noise in the audio. I traced that problem with my signal tracer down to the first audio transistor here. It was an AC-126. I went through my parts for a similar European transistor and found a AC-162, and that seems to have been a suitable replacement that cleared up the sound. I also changed out all the caps, including 2 disc caps that had seemingly gone leaky. I don't know, I didn't waste too much time testing them. I have plenty of those 0.1 microfarad film caps, so it's no big deal to replace them, and these things are pretty cheap. This board here is the RF and IF board, and then This board here is just the amplifier. I like how they did that. It made this set a little bit easier to work on. And they had the bare minimum of connections between the two, which is also nice. Not so many things to desolder. Just the ground connection, which is positive, the signal wire, and then the negative connection. This is an output transformerless design, which uses a capacitor to couple the audio output. It's this capacitor right here. And it's got a good sized speaker, which looks to be fairly, good quality. It's not marked as to a brand though. Like most European transistor radios, especially, less expensive ones, this one does not have a tuned RF stage. On the side here, there's a connection for a DC power input, and then another connector for an external speaker or earphone. Weirdly, the external speaker / earphone connector is the smaller size connector that's typically seen on transistor radios, usually on miniature ones, and then this is like a standard headphone jack. I don't know why they used a headphone jack connector for the power input. That just seems like a bad idea. Someone could plug that into the wrong connector on something else. Though at least they were smart enough to use two different style jacks for these two jacks. Well, thanks for watching.